Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're just going to give it about a minute just so people can transition over and join in for those who are here. Again, for those just joining, thanks. We'll get started in about 30 seconds. We're just waiting for people to transition over from the weight room and then we'll get started. All right, so we'll get things kicked off, but it's fine if everyone joins in or has to leave in a second, come back. It's all good. So welcome to today's GRADnavigate session on the final year, we're calling it. So really, you can be at any point in your program, but if you are starting to think of, what comes next when it comes to the end stages of a master's degree or a PhD, you're in the right place. So welcome. Um, I should also first mention, before we go further, that there is closed captioning available. It should show up as a CC option at the bottom of your screen. And we have a Q&A function also at the bottom of your screen. You may have to click in the far right section that kind of indicates there's additional functions in your Zoom. It shows like a dot, dot, dot. If the Q&A is not functioning or showing right at the bottom, you might have to go there to find it. So feel free to put in questions there at any point in time, and we can address them after Laura's conversation with us, as well as at the end too. This session is being recorded, and we are able to share the slides with all of you as well. So you don't have to worry about taking like fierce notes or anything like that, because we will be giving you the links to all of that stuff. And the chat should also be available for you if you would like to make a comment or anything along the way as well. All right, so before we get further, I'd like to share a territorial acknowledgement. The University of Waterloo acknowledges that much of our work takes place on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. Our main campus is situated on the Haldimand Tract, the land granted to the Six Nations that includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. Our active work towards reconciliation takes place across our campuses through research, learning, teaching, and community building, and is coordinated within the Office of Indigenous Relations. And as a personal acknowledgement, as someone whose ancestors settled in the territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Wendake, Neonwencio, and Mississauga peoples, I seek to learn more about the injustices Indigenous peoples face, as well as the call to actions advocated for by attending workshops, reading, and conversing with the people around me. I recognize acknowledgements like this are only one step towards reconciliation, and there's still a lot of work to be done across Canada related to the inequities, barriers, and damage colonization has caused. So the Office of Indigenous Relations on campus is a fantastic resource. They offer events, training, and online and in-person resources. So feel free to check that office out. In terms of who you're going to be hearing from the most today, my name is Ashley Ryan. I'm the current graduate and postdoctoral programming specialist over at Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs. And shortly, we will also hear from our other speaker as well. Laura Ashfield is here today, and Laura is a career advisor over at the Center of Career Development. So Laura will have some really great information on making that kind of career transition and advice and resources. So here are the things that you can kind of expect to hear from both of us today. We're going to talk a little bit about staying motivated in these last years or year of your program. We're going to talk a little bit about degree timelines for master's and PhD students, as well as defense resources for those who may have that in their program. We're going to be talking about that career transition piece, like I mentioned, that Laura is going to be stepping in for. We're going to talk a little bit about immigration resources that are available to you on and off campus in the area, alumni benefits that you may not realize that you have once you graduate or become an alumni, as well as staying connected with the university community. And we're going to talk about those celebration components, such as convocation and some of the other celebrations that might be offered across campus and through our office as well. And of course, at the end, we do have a Q&A function, so feel free. You don't have to wait until then to put your comments and questions in the chat or Q&A function. Feel free to do that at any point. And Laura can answer some questions from her presentation after talking about the career transition piece, and then we can answer some other questions at the end as well. All right, so the first piece we're going to talk about today is staying motivated, because I know from personal experience, I did my undergrad, my master's, and my PhD all here at Waterloo. And so even from personal experience and working with tons of students over the years at the master's and PhD level, staying motivated is, it can be quite a challenge sometimes to do, especially when we get further and further along into our programs. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. So here are some suggestions that I have and I've heard from students and those that I've worked with at the Graduate Student Association when I was a student over the years, as well as from PhD students who recently convocated. Here are some of the big tips for staying motivated. First one, of course, to take breaks, but not just any breaks, to do like what things would make you happy. Of course, just taking breaks just to chill and relax are also super important. But also all of those things that you like to do in your life, like hobbies, seeing friends, seeing family, things that recharge you and make you happy and excited for life. It is really important to still be doing those things, even if you feel like you have a lot going on the academic side that you want to get accomplished. Doing these other things in your life that make you happy will help motivate you to do the academic work. Next up, make sure you get some sleep and refresh yourself. Our memories and our brains don't work to our full capacities and work as well when we're totally burnt out and tired. So it is so important to take that time to get a good night's rest and sleep, and even sometimes naps if you need it, to refresh yourself, your brain, and it'll be so good for your well-being and your overall health. Get outside, get outside in the fresh air, hopefully not when it's like smoky air like it was a few weeks ago. Hopefully we don't see a lot of that. But get outside, get into nature, maybe go for a walk with your friends, maybe go for a hike in the forest, go to the beach, whatever and wherever you want to go, get some time out in nature to rejuvenate yourself as well. Another one that I've seen and I've told students in the past, and for what I did to keep myself motivated in my PhD, and by talking to other PhD graduates, is kind of taking a step back, especially if you're kind of at a step point in your program that you feel like you're not seeing the end, like it's just like there's all of these things happening and you can't see where it's going, and it's sometimes easy to kind of get into a situation where you're just so tunnel vision thinking about your academic work and your dissertation or your thesis or your course, that sometimes it can be hard to kind of step back and see the bigger picture. But doing exactly that is a really great source of motivation. And what I mean by that is really taking some moments to think and reflect back on, why am I doing my master's or my PhD in the first place? What drove me to do this? What people or things might my research help with in the long run? What doors might open because I'm doing this work now? Just kind of stepping back and kind of trying to look into the future and seeing all of these things that are past the PhD or past your master's, and that might help you stay motivated. And tied to that is trying to spot the light at the end of the tunnel, which I know easier said than done. And what I mean by this is similar to what I was just talking about, is that it can get really easy, especially when we get really into the deep stages of our master's or PhD thesis work, and you're down to the nitty-gritty details and doing that data collection and analysis and editing, it can be hard to kind of see the end of the line. So take those moments to kind of spot where things are, what things are left in your program and where that end line is. And you could even take like a session like today, like coming and seeing and learning about the final year and learning about convocation. Hopefully, maybe that is the source of motivation of maybe this is your light at the end of the tunnel for some of you. Maybe it sometimes helps people to change up your workspace. Maybe, choose to do some studying or writing from a different location. Like the grad writing cafes, like the Writing Communication Center offers, or your home office. Maybe you switch it up depending on the day of the week. That can help as well. For me, I was always pumped and motivated by changing up a little bit of my decor, like even just, posting and taping up a few pictures of friends and family, or even just getting myself a fancy new like highlighter from the dollar store. Like even small things like that can really help you, get that writing done. Or maybe even like music. Sometimes silence might work best for you, but maybe classical music works best, or maybe you're someone who gets really motivated to do that work. You were listening to that like pump up music that's really motivational. Next up is rewarding yourself. So I know also easier said than done, is that we're kind of always in a batch of seeing what we can improve on and seeing what comes next, but you're reaching so many accomplishments along the way that you may not even be realizing. And so I want you to take a moment to reward yourself for those journeys. Even if it's as small as like a gummy bear or whatever the case is that you like to reward yourself with, like going to the movies or whatever the case is, take those moments and get that to yourself. And lastly, gathering encouragement advice from friends and family. So maybe it's just in the sense of, having conversations with them and they can kind of give you that motivational piece and pump you up. Or they can give you like a whole pep talk situation. I know in my case, I became very close friends in my PhD with a PhD student who happened to be like 2 or 3 years ahead of me in the program and was wrapping up when I was earlier on. And so she gave some really great pep talks and advice as I was reaching the end stages of the program, because she was already finished and out and knew what I was going to be expecting along the way. So all of those kind of things can be really great to try to stay motivated. So a really cool quote that I found online that I wanted to share is, finishing a graduate degree is like moving a mountain. Luckily, you only have to move one rock at a time. And this resonated with me because I think, doing something like a master's or PhD, if we're looking at it as a whole, is like can be very overwhelming. It's like this massive thing that we have to do or we want to accomplish. But in the reality is there's a lot of little milestone and chips that we can do along the way to build towards that massive accomplishment. Even if it's, getting to closer to the end by writing a paragraph a day or a page a day or doing like one thing a day, is still chipping away at that mountain and climbing it as well. So I know there's a lot of things that can motivate people, and maybe some of you were looking at the list that I was talking about, and you have something that you have in mind that motivates and pushes you through your master's or PhD that I didn't even mention. And I'm really curious to learn about them. So I'm just going to shift gears for a second, and we're going to hear what you have to say. One second. Okay. So you should now on your screen, what you'll be seeing is a Mentimeter question. So basically it has instructions. What it says is go to menti.com. So you can do it on your phone if you'd like. So just menti.com. Or you can just kind of screen the QR code that's there. or put it in the number, and it will bring you to this. And the question that you're going to be answering through this Menti is, what motivates you in your master's or PhD? Okay, we're starting to see some things popping up. Exploring interesting things. Yes, I totally agree with that. Mentors are great for motivation. Supportive friends and colleagues. Yes. Knowing I'm contributing to building a future for me and my loved ones. Yes, that's totally a great answer. And my research. Yeah, so that's fantastic. That's ideal, right? If you find yourself in your master's or PhD and the research itself is what's driving your motivation, that's really ideal. That's great. And multiple people said their research. And then we have the concept of the idea of how I'll be able to improve things for other people after volunteering in ways that structure my time. And the idea that things might get easier once I'm able to try a new psych medication. Yep, all of these things are fantastic and ways to stay motivated. I'll keep it open for a few more seconds in case anyone else would like to put in a comment. I'm really happy to see like a large variety of things popping up. Looking forward to having a job with structure. Yeah, I can resonate with that one totally. Because I can see like sometimes it's a little bit all over the place, like scheduling wise with your grad studies, right? All right, so I'm not seeing any more come in, so I will end that and we'll switch back over to the slides. But thank you so much for participating in that. Okay. Trying to make sure that you're seeing you're supposed to be seeing. Okay, awesome. So thanks for that component. Now that we've kind of talked a little bit about the motivational piece and what can motivate us to continue, we're going to talk a little bit about the timeline to completion. So just to give you a rough estimate, and we're not going to talk too much about it because this stuff is on our website, and we also have a session in Rock Your Thesis run through the Writing Communication Center that really goes into a lot of this stuff in depth if you're interested. But I wanted to include it here just so that no one's caught off guard when it comes to the last year of their kind of program, especially when they're gearing up to defend potentially. For those PhD students in the room, just to give you all a heads up if you're not aware, when we get to the end of our PhDs, and maybe we're at a point where like, okay, yes, our dissertation, our thesis is ready to defend, let's move forward. The timing from that and actually becoming degree complete can take about 3 to 4 months. So I'm saying this so that you can kind of build that into your timeline so that you know what to expect at the end. And we also have faculty-specific backwards planning tools that can provide assistance in this as well. But this is why I'm going to talk to you a little bit, a few different items of why that the actual completion of the defending and all of these things can take basically up to a term. So about 8 weeks to a term prior to your defense when your committee is approved. Once you submit your thesis or dissertation to put it up for defense, there is a mandatory display period that where basically kind of a notice goes out to the university community through the daily bulletin and often your department that says, hey, like this person in a department is defending. And in that display period window, it notifies people when your defense is happening so that they can attend if they would like, because often defenses are technically open to the public. And in this time period, technically, someone could submit a form to request to see your thesis or dissertation. I don't expect that this happens too often, but I just want to give you a heads up that it is a thing that can be done. After that display period, you get to your defense, but the defense is not the end of the line. So when you pass, hopefully you pass and finish your defense, does not mean that you have completed your degree, even though you've completed almost every milestone in your program. It could actually take 1 to 4 months after you defend to be officially degree complete. And mainly that is because of the potential for revisions. And we're going to talk a little bit about your potential defense outcomes in a few slides. But if you are not aware already, revisions may be possible. And we're talking about it might be possible and it might be something you have to do at the master's level as well. You also have to submit your thesis/dissertation to UW Space, which is kind of like our online archive. And you basically, GSPA or Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs, we kind of screen it for formatting and approve or deny it. If it's sent back to you, it's no big problem, but you'll have to make some adjustments to have it sent back in and approved. You are officially degree complete when that thesis or dissertation is approved in UW Space. If you are a master's student, the thing with master's is that it really varies across the university. So PhD timelines and requirements for things like defenses are a lot more standard and in policy here. At the master's level, it is very varied. So it is a very important. If you are a master's student here today and you have a thesis component of your degree, then you talk to your department and your supervisor to see what is required for you. Of course, this timeline is also not going to be applicable for those of you in coursework, because if you're in a coursework-based program, then of course your degree complete would typically be addressed by completing the last, completing and or passing to a specific percentage the last course that you require for your program. But for those of you that are in your master's degree and a thesis, this is what like an average timeline might take. Again, the total process could take 1 to 2 months potentially within terms of, committee approvals, your display period, if you have a defense, potential revisions, and all of that good stuff. So some of you, if you're here and you're getting close to the end of your program, you might be thinking, Ashley, there's no way I'm finishing this degree within the timelines that I've been initially given. Is there something I can do to stick around and finish within another 1 or 2 terms? And the answer is yes. I will say I did not finish my PhD in the 4-year timeline. I honestly, in my program, I don't think I know of a single person who finished in under 4 years. It's possible and it's done, but a lot of people have to do some form of extension. So typically, graduate programs do have a completion time limit. This is typically up to 6 terms if you're a master's student doing a thesis-based program, typically 12 for the PhD students. And of course, there are some kind of differences if you're doing co-op, for example. If you require more time, you will have to formally request a program extension. So there is some paperwork that needs to be done to get this extension approved. So here are the steps that we're going to talk about. You're going to meet with your supervisor and your committee, and what you're going to do is discuss the progress that you've made to date, and what needs to be done in order to get to that degree complete state. And you're going to create kind of a timeline that's realistic to complete those remaining milestones that you have in your program. Okay? Once you have that timeline, you're going to submit a request for extension beyond program time limit. So it's actually a form online, and it goes to your department. And there is a deadline for every term that you have to submit this form by. And who makes the decision on if your extension is granted is heavily dependent on how many extensions you are term-wise past the typical degree time limit, like I was talking about earlier. So for example, the term limit for a PhD is typically 12 terms. If you're wanting to go just 1 or 2 terms past that, like term 13, 14, or 15, if you're within that just additional year past the 4-year limit, the decision will be made by your department's graduate officer. Now, if it is beyond that, like if we're going into, 2 years outside of those degree time limits or more, that decision is actually made at the faculty level by the Associate Dean Graduate Studies in your faculty. So it is no longer held at the department level. What they're really looking for is to make sure that progress is being made, and you have the resources available to you, and you have a reasonable timeline and plan for getting things done for your program so you can reach the end. And before we hand things off to Laura, I just want to talk a little bit about defending for those of you who may have this applicable to you. If you're a master's with a thesis component or you're a PhD student, you're going to be typically defending. So like I was saying earlier, the master's defense processes vary very greatly across the university. So have those conversations with your departments early to figure out what exactly is involved for your program stream. PhD defenses they have a lot of more standards across the university, and they have really specific policies around it. So I've linked in there, and I'll send off the slides to you as well, the restrictions and what to expect out of a PhD defense. I'm not going to go too much into the defense process today, because earlier this term, we actually had an entire hour-and-a-half webinar on tackling a PhD defense. And I have put in a link in this slide, and I'll send it out. You can look over that entire webinar to get all of the really great advice and tips that we shared there. It was specific to the PhD defense process because of the standardization of it. But if you're a master's student with a defense component, I still personally think that there's really great advice and tips in there if you want to check it out. We also have specific web pages for defense tips and remote defense tips if you're going to be defending in front of your computer screen. And other great resources here, of course, the Writing Communications Center. They have the Rock Your Thesis program that you could go to, and the Design and Deliver Grad Studio. And they actually have one of the pieces of the Design and Deliver Grad Studio is a session on things like answering questions and the defense component. So that will be super useful for you. In your PhD defense, if you're a PhD, you will be getting one of three outcomes of your defense. You'll either have it fully accepted, which means the committee is satisfied and you'll have little or no changes to make before your submission. So you'll have to be degree complete within 1 month of that defense date. Or you will get accepted conditionally, which means that the defense and thesis are acceptable, so you don't have to defend again, but you may have to make slightly larger revisions to your thesis or dissertation before it is submitted to UW Space. If you were given that outcome, you have up to 4 months or 1 term to get degree complete. And of course, in the rare circumstance, you may have a re-examination outcome, which means you may have to re-examine and do the defense again within the year. But again, that's not very common. Typically, students will get an accepted or accepted conditionally. Outcomes for a master's level thesis defense, these outcomes might look a little bit different for you. For me, my department just used kind of the same kind of paperwork and outcome outline. So my master's, I got one of these, and then my PhD, I also got very similar processes. So it might look really similar, it might look a little different. And with that, I'm going to stop my sharing, and I'm going to hand things off to Laura, who's going to talk about all the really great resources and tips from the Center for Career Development.
Thanks, Ashley. Just going to share my screen. Can you see this okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So hello, everyone. My name is Laura Ashfield. My pronouns are she and her. And I'm a career advisor at the Center for Career Development. I work with undergrads, masters, PhDs, and postdocs. And I've been there since 2019. So often when we meet with students who are about to graduate, a lot of questions or concerns come up when thinking about their career beyond U-Waterloo. So some of the common questions we get are, how do I know what kinds of careers are out there? Where do I look for jobs? How can I meet people in my field? How can I make my application stand out? and what resources are there to support me in my job search. So we're going to be covering some of these, but coming to meet with us, we can cover any of these questions and more. So in navigating, the work search, whether it's academic work search or whether it is industry, it can feel a little bit daunting, chaotic. There's a lot of things out of our control. Layoffs, government funding, tariffs, who's hiring, bias, all of these things are unfortunately out of our control. But there are a lot of things that are in our control. So job search strategies, where we look for work, how much tailoring we do to our applications, how much preparation we do for interviews, research, as well as networking and connections. And so I'm going to be focusing most of my tips around networking and connections because it is such an important way to tap into the hidden job market. Um, for those of you who haven't heard about the hidden job market, I have a bit of a diagram to share with you here. So when people think about job searching, the first thing that comes to their mind is, I'm going to apply to jobs online, and maybe send in a resume, write a cover letter. That's what most job seekers do. Next, maybe they think, okay, I'm going to try and get some referrals from friends and colleagues. Not everyone does that. And then a very, very small amount will actually start to develop relationships with employers. But how hiring managers prefer to hire is unfortunately the exact opposite. So first of all, when they need to hire someone, they think, who do I know already? Who do I already trust? Who have I seen do work like this already? If there isn't anyone like that, they think, okay, is there someone that we could get referred to by a trusted colleague, friend, or agency? And then lastly, they may hire through the job ad and maybe just a random application or resume. This isn't to say that people don't get jobs by applying online. Obviously, that definitely happens, but it's not the most effective way to find work. And so really the key to tapping into that hidden job market is really getting those referrals from friends and colleagues and then developing those relationships with employers. Okay. And then, so in terms of networking, it's definitely my number one job search strategy tip. I know it can be really intimidating at first. That's absolutely normal. What we recommend is starting with who you know. So starting to have those conversations and then expanding from there. And the more you practice, the more conversations you have, the easier it will be. The other thing to think about is that networking can take so many different forms. So some people really like going to networking events. That's really where they thrive. Whereas others might not be into that, and that's totally fine. You don't have to go to those. Other people may be more interested in connecting one-on-one with targeted professionals in their industry. It's a long-term strategy that can help you now and in your future. Sometimes when I speak with students, they think, how many people do I have to connect with, to get a job? Unfortunately, it's not a formula, but it is a really effective strategy that is sometimes a bit chaotic in navigating, but it's really great. The only other thing I want to say too about this is networking isn't about asking for a job. It's more about asking for conversations, and it's more about learning from people who are doing the jobs that you are really interested in. Again, you will get these slides, and I've linked in more networking strategies that you can take a look at through one of our resources. But I did want to just quickly go over a few networking activities that you could try on your own. So activity number one is the 5 contact challenge. Basically, the activity is think of 5 people that you know. Um, it could be a professor, a classmate, a gym buddy. I always use this example, like if I suddenly wanted to change my career, the first person I would go to is my hairdresser because she knows everyone. She may not have any idea about the industry that I want to go into, but she would definitely know someone that she could introduce me to. And so if there's anyone like that in your life that just seems to like know a lot of people, they are such a great resource to tap into. And so once you list those 5 people, then you're going to reach out to them however is most natural to you. So if it's, via text, email, whatever it is, reach out to them and let them know that you're graduating soon and you're exploring careers in X industry. A lot of the time people think like, oh, I need to keep, my job search secret. It's this, something I need to work on myself. But honestly, the more people who know that you are looking for work, the better, because then they can, think of you if they meet someone new that you might want to connect with. The last piece of this is about asking. So you want to gain access to their network and their knowledge. So one question you could ask is, what advice do you have for me? Um, Another question is, do you know anyone that I would benefit from connecting with? And this is really where that networking piece comes in because you're starting to expand your network beyond the people that you already know. So I definitely recommend starting with that one. Another networking activity that we have is called the LAMP activity. And this stands for List, Alumni, Motivation, and Posting. And so the activity, it comes from a book called The 2 Hour Job Search. And basically, what they tell you to do is create a list of 40 employers who you are interested in working for. The next piece is prioritize alumni connections that work at those industries, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Um, After that, then you're really going to start to prioritize, what are my top 10, top 15 companies that I'm most motivated to connect with? And then lastly, if those companies are already posting, obviously apply to those posts and try and prioritize those companies that are actively hiring. But you don't have to only stick with companies that have active job postings with this activity. The purpose of this activity is that, if you think of, what are like 5 employers that you're interested in? Most of the time, everyone else is thinking of those companies as well. And actually, the Canadian economy is really based on small to medium-sized businesses. So there are way more opportunities out there that maybe you don't know about because we're only thinking of those like big, well-known companies. So the purpose of this is really to broaden job seekers' horizons of their possibilities and really just get to know what's out there in terms of the types of employers you might be interested in. So in order to find those 40 companies, Google is a great place to look. LinkedIn, the yellow pages still exist online, and even using AI to create a list of particular companies within your industry, and maybe like specific location preferences that you have. So once you start this list, I recommend putting it in some sort of spreadsheet, keeping track of different links that you have found, and starting to do a bit of research on who might I know who works at these companies, or is there someone I can connect with that maybe is a U Waterloo alum that works at these companies. I also recommend starting to follow these companies on LinkedIn. If you have LinkedIn, definitely it can be a great tool. And then start really connecting with anyone you know that works at those companies. One way to do this is through the LinkedIn alumni search tool, and I've linked a how-to video there for you. This is a really cool tool. Um, Basically, I'm showing you the U Waterloo version here. This is where you can search for alumni. If you go to the University of Waterloo LinkedIn page and then click the alumni tab, it'll look like this. And then you can filter by different companies that people work at, different cities that they live in, a program that they took. There's so many different ways to filter it, as well as keyword searches. And this is a really, really great way to find people that you might want to connect with. Okay. Excuse me. For those of you who maybe haven't done this before, um, if there's someone, let's say you find someone on LinkedIn that, is doing the job that you're really interested in doing, and you don't really know how to reach out, we have a really helpful template here. Basically, there's like three main things I recommend. Is number one, introduce yourself. Say who you are, maybe what program you're graduating from. Number two, tell them why you want to connect with them. This is important, and you want to be as specific as possible because you want them, or yeah, you want them to know that you've done your homework and you actually really want to hear from them specifically. You're not just, reaching out to random people here and there. And then lastly, basically a call to action. You want to ask them, are you available for a 20-minute coffee chat in the next couple of weeks? And then gratitude, so thanking them for their time and consideration. The reason that we recommend asking for an actual, coffee chat, whether it's virtual or in person, is because you actually want to like speak with them. You don't just want to chat with them via email or messages because you want them to get to know you as well, and you actually want to get to know them. It's not just about getting information, it's about creating an authentic relationship as well. And so if that person says, yeah, let's, get together next week, I've also linked resources on how to prepare for that networking chat, and different questions that you can come up with and ask in that conversation. In terms of other networking opportunities, there is a big job fair coming up September 23rd at Rim Park. I've linked it there. It's the Partners for Employment job fair, and that is for University of Waterloo, Laurier, Guelph, and Conestoga students and alum. And the September one actually really focuses on full-time jobs after graduation. So that's like a perfect one for you to check out. We also have workshops and resources on how to prepare for a job fair. So lots of support there for you. We also recommend checking out websites like Eventbrite, Meetup. Sometimes there's like networking events, different meetup situations that you can check out and start meeting people in your industry. And then organized by the University of Waterloo, we have employer information sessions, which is where employers come to the University of Waterloo to, give some information about who they are. And then there's usually a bit of time to connect with them afterwards. And then we also have an additional networking and professional events calendar that I will show you in a second. Awesome. So I mentioned there's a lot of resources, so we'll just quickly go over the resources that we have to support you in your next steps in your career. So the place I'd start with is the CCD website. There's a ton of information. We have a list of upcoming events, upcoming workshops that we have, as well as steps to book an appointment with us. We do offer one-on-one appointments. We offer these until the time you graduate. And so if you're in your last year now, I would definitely use those appointments. They're unlimited, free, until you graduate. After that, unfortunately, no access to meet with us, but you still have access to our online resources forever. So in terms of what you can meet with us about, whether you're looking to go into industry or academia, we can help you with either. So we can help you with resumes or CVs, academic interviews, industry interviews, cover letters, networking, negotiating, job offers, and even if you're not quite sure what you want to do or where you want to go next, we can also help you find that out as well. In terms of Waterloo Works, this is our system where you can book appointments with us. There's also a lot of resources there that not everyone knows about. There is a external job boards section that links a whole bunch of different job boards that can be really, really helpful for you. There's also the Career Center events calendar, the additional networking and professional events that I mentioned before. And there is a Higher Waterloo job board as well for graduating students. Career Hub is our online resource. You have access 24/7. This is the one that will have access to, years from now still. There's a ton of advice, guidelines, templates, and tips on things like putting together applications, networking, interviewing, negotiating job offers, preparing for academic interviews, lots of information there that you can access. And then for those of you that are thinking of pursuing a career within academia, we are just one of a few different departments at Waterloo that can support you in this. So our specialty is more about CVs, cover letters, as well as diversity statements and interviews, whereas the Center for Teaching Excellence can support you with teaching dossiers, and your teaching philosophy. And then the Writing and Communication Center specializes more on research statements and diversity statements. So there's a bit of a website and diagram there for you to navigate all the different ways that different departments can help you with that. Lastly, we do have recorded workshops as well that you can check out. These again will be available even after you graduate. Some of them are 10 minutes, some of them are half an hour, and there's a lot of really, really great helpful tools there. The one that I think I would definitely recommend is in the job search section, the personal branding part 1 and 2. That's all about LinkedIn and how to create really strong LinkedIn profiles. Okay. And then lastly, what I recommend is making sure to take care of yourself. Job searching can be really stressful and taxing, and this is a huge transition for some of you. Maybe you've been in school your whole life, and this is the first time that you're not going to be in school. So it is a big deal. It is hard, and just give yourself grace with that. Another thing I recommend is tracking your progress, setting schedules and goals. And trying different work search strategies can really help. And then practicing self-care throughout the job search. So whatever that means to you, for me, I have to, go for walks or I lose my mind. For other people, maybe it's about, doing some art or doing meditation. So whatever works for you, stick with that. It is important. And then stay connected to people that you trust for support and consider visiting CCD before you graduate because we are happy to help you. And that is all I have for you today. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura. In the meantime, feel free to, put some questions for you, Laura, right now. If anyone has any questions for Laura, feel free to chop them into the chat or into the Q&A function now before we switch over to some other topics. And while people are writing, yeah, I like my job at GSPA, like this is my first full-time job out of being a student. Like I went all of my degrees in high school and like all boom, 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 like back to back. And so I had reached, in my late 20s and never had a full-time job. And I was like, whoa, what do I do? And I went to like multiple like sessions with Kira at the Center for Career Development through the career advisors and resources, and it was so helpful for me transitioning out of my PhD. So hopefully people today, all of you students here will also use those resources because they're so fantastic. So I will start switching over and we'll see if anything pops up in the questions as well. And while we're waiting, I will also quickly answer this one question that I saw in here on some of earlier content. And the question was, if you get an accepted on your PhD defense, like the outcome that I was talking about, where you have up to 1 month to be fully degree complete, which means you would just have to have the minor revisions before submitting to UW Space. The question was, can you request more than 1 month to complete the revisions and stay in the program a bit longer? I believe in some circumstances you may be able to, for example, if you have like accommodation through accessibility services, but typically if you're worried about getting the revisions done, typically they're like very minor if you're getting that as an outcome, such as like piece of formatting, adjusting a sentence or a paragraph, adding a couple citations. So if it is a situation where you're like doing substantial stuff, you will get that second option, which is up to 4 months. But there may be some wiggle room in the timing depending on your circumstances. And then there was also a question related to the tri-agency funding. And so if you're a tri-agency award holder, like when does the funding stop? If you're in the middle of the term and you become degree complete, for example. I don't have a full answer for you for that, but we do have a full awards team at GSPA that would be more than happy to speak to anyone in the room that might apply to. And we have a specific colleague, Elena, who deals with tri-agency doctoral funding. So I can pop her email in the chat too if this applies to anyone else in the room today. So I'm not seeing any other questions, so I think we'll move on, but thank you so much, Laura, for chatting with us today. I know it's going to be super useful for those here today, as well as those watching the recording later.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye. And for those, we are going to be moving on to some other topics that I was mentioning in the agenda. So some of you may be international students here today, so I just want to take a few moments to talk about some resources that you may already know about or you might not know about yet that you might find very useful for your time. So right here on campus, hopefully some of you are aware of this. If you're an international student, we have the Center for International Experience. And at this center, they do lots of really great workshops and events and things like that. But they also have two really great resources that I want to share today. And that is arrangement with immigration consultants that are there to talk to you about, things like post-graduation work permits in Canada, study permits, and more of those pieces. They also have a lot of great resources and information on immigration documents, including, if you're going to have family come and visit you while you're here in Canada, or if you plan on getting a visa to go enter the United States, like, for example, even for a conference or anything along those lines, those kind of links can give you some great information and resources. In terms of off-campus, in terms of Waterloo Region, you have Immigration Waterloo Region, which is a collection of supports for those immigrating to Waterloo Region and who are here already, including, again, additional immigration consulting, conversation circles, housing supports, and a lot of other things. Another thing I recently came across that was sent my way that I wanted to add into here today is that Waterloo Region also runs, with collaboration with an organization, an entire newsletter. So it's called the Immigration Waterloo Region Newsletter. I linked it in there and I'll send it out today or in the next few days with the slides. But this is great if you want that. I think it goes maybe monthly. It comes right to your inbox. It will have really great up-to-date resources and events that are happening. So I would see that as probably a really great resource for anyone who's international here today. And of course, you can always check out the resources at Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, or IRCC, online. They have a lot of resources. This would be the place that you're going to get a lot of the information on the permanent residence or PR status process that applies to you. Because I do know the International Experience Center here on campus, the consultants there, they don't have conversations about PR status. So if that is something that you're looking to navigate, you may have to seek an external off-campus consultation or information. And of course, if you are in the market for a lawyer, the Law Society of Ontario has a great database that you can find kind of an immigration lawyer if that's something you're in need of. So when I was putting this presentation together, there were a few pieces of advice in general that I wanted to share with you all today that I popped in. The first one, from what I've seen all the years, this is a good of finding strategies that work for you when you all capitalize. It's really great to learn about strategies, writing strategies, studying, learning, reading, study, like defending, whatever the process is in grad school. People have tons of really great resources. Some will work for you, some might not work for you, depending on, how you work and what kind of things that you like to do and your personality. And so there's no like one size fits all for this. So find things. It's great to hear what other people have to say and encourage you to do and try out and test. But at the end of the day, you have to find what works effectively and efficiently for yourself. The second one, you've probably hopefully heard this around, the perfect thesis does not exist. So for those in the room, and this even applies to you if you are a coursework student submitting that major like research paper for a course, there's no perfect version of that either. At some point in your program, your master's, your PhD, you're going to have to reach a point where you're going to have to let it go and put it out into the world and go through the rest of the steps of your program to become degree complete. You'll probably hear it like the quote that floats around in academia is that a good dissertation or a good thesis is a finished one. Because that's the end of the day. Of course, there's a level of quality that has to be reached, but at the end of the day, there's always going to be like holes. There's always going to be room for criticism. There's always going to be room for people saying that you should have done it a different way or included this scope or that scope. The perfect thesis does not exist. And so you have to allow yourself at a certain point in time to move forward and push past that stage. It is okay not to know what will come next. I'm gonna be totally transparent for you. When I was in the end of my PhD, like we're talking like the last few months, like maybe I've already even defended, and people were still asking me like, Ashley, what are you doing next? What's your next job lined up? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna become a professor? Like, what's up? I just started telling people it's a surprise. Because I still didn't know. I was applying to a bunch of different jobs in tons of different sectors, not related to each other. That and other people were in the same situation. So it's totally okay not to know exactly what is next on your pathway, right? You might land somewhere in a job or a career or position that is completely not even on your brain right now. It might be something that's totally new and you don't even know exists as a role. So it is okay not to know exactly what's going to happen 4 months from now, 1 year from now, 5 years from now. That's just how life works, is that it can be really unpredictable and you kind of have to sometimes go with the flow. And of course, like I was talking about earlier, we have so many things that we accomplish in a master's or a PhD, especially when we get to the end of our programs, that it's just so important to celebrate. And we're going to talk a little bit about a few things of how to do those celebrations or some options for you. So for example, I just put some pictures of my own celebrations in here. The bottom left is with my now husband, and we went out for dinner after my PhD defense. To the right, I don't know if this was after my master's thesis or my PhD dissertation defense, but actually at the graduate house, they have what they call the Chalice of Champions, and it's free. And a lot of people get the Chalice of Champions filled with beer, so you can get an alcoholic drink. I personally don't drink alcohol, so I opted for the Chalice of Champions to be filled with cranberry juice and water. They now also have a whole like mural that you can take your picture with that says like Chalice of Champions on it. So if you have recently defended or you're going to defend, put this on your list of things to go get for free at the grad house. If you are a PhD here today, you may not know this, but Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs, we run this fantastic dinner event that is free to PhD graduates at Fed Hall. And we run it twice a year. It's called our PhD Graduate Celebration. And we try to run it as close to convocation as possible. And basically what happens is that we invite all of the PhD graduates who are in that convocation section to this dinner. There's lots of photo opportunities. We have a photo booth. It's a free buffet dinner for graduates. You can invite and pay up to one guest of your choice. Your supervisors are also invited. We also have speeches that are shared as well. It's a really fun time. So hopefully I'll see some of you there in the future. And of course, all of you will be invited to at some point when you're done your programs, whether it be master's in coursework, you're doing an MRP, a thesis, a PhD, whatever the case is, at some point, you're hopefully going to reach the point where your degree complete and you'll be invited to convocation. Convocation runs twice a year. We run it in June and in October. There are deadlines to be in that convocation round. So for example, if you want to be walking across the stage at our June convocation, you do have to be officially degree complete by August 31st. So even if you, that is for the October one. So for the June convocation, you have to be degree complete by April 30th. So even if you degree complete on like May 20th and convocation isn't for a few weeks, unfortunately, you're not going to be in that convocation round. You'll be pushed to the October round. And for October, you have to be degree complete by August 31st. And as a reminder, we count here at UWaterloo indication of degree complete for thesis streams, masters, and PhDs as like having your submission accepted in UW space. And of course, for coursework, that's going to look a bit different because you don't have that component that you're waiting on. You're taking coursework. So that will be indicated by the completion of a term for most cases and indications on your transcript of meeting all of the coursework requirements. For convocation, you have to register to attend, and you can have up to 2 guests attend convocation with you. But in the case where you have a lot more people that you want to see you cross the stage, whether locally or even overseas, we do have a convocation is also live streamed online for those who may not be there in person at the ceremony. It is for the rental gown, you rent your gown in advance, and it's also recommended to order your diploma frame in advance if you would like a diploma frame. And so here's some examples of what that looks like at the bottom for what you're going to be wearing. We have our PhD graduates are the ones in the red and green outfits, and you get like kind of like a velvet looking circular hat situation with like a gold tinsel on it. So that's the PhD outfit. And then the masters look a little bit different depending on faculties and programs, but in the middle photo is an example of a master's degree. So it looks, they do have indications that are separate from the undergrads, but it's going to look a lot more similar to the undergrads in terms of black robes, and the PhDs really stand out with the red and green. But as some people may have noticed, there are no traditional like graduation like caps, like with the flat square situation at the top. So if you want like photos done with that on convocation day, What I see people do is they bring like versions from like the dollar store or Amazon just for like the sake of taking pictures. So that's a good thing to know in advance if you're planning on that. And one of the last things I wanted to talk to you about is, of course, like I was mentioning, you will get access to alumni benefits once you finish your program. Some of you actually might already have these benefits and not be aware of them if you have previously done a degree at UW as an undergrad, or maybe you completed your master's here and you're a PhD student. Other case, I always like checking them out because I too am an alumni and I would also like to cash in on some of these benefits. So I'm going to share them with you. First of all, unlike a lot of other institutions, you get to keep your email address at the University of Waterloo. So there's not as much of a concern about losing all of these access points through your email, especially if you have it tied to something else in your life. There are really cool alumni events around the world, even in Singapore, Seattle, Toronto, Brazil, like literally just everywhere. They have different kind of chapters all over the place that they run events to play. There are things like networking events, like pub nights, sports games. There's zoo outings, there's theme park days. Like I think last year, like the alumni sent out like an invitation for like discounted tickets on a specific day and a barbecue at Canada's Wonderland. So there's tons of different options there to connect. There's really great discounts if you're interested in going to places like Ripley's Aquarium in Toronto, the Stratford Festival, things like HelloFresh. Via Canada Rail or Via Rail Canada might be of interest to some of you. If you're looking to get your pleasure craft license or your boating license, there's discounts for that. So there's a bunch of little random discounts that you can look into and apply if it applies to you, of what you want to do. You also, I would highly recommend checking out the different rates. If you're in the market for home, auto, travel, or life insurance, you can get special rates because you're a UW alumni. So if you are looking for something like that or looking to change over your insurance coverage, I would recommend at least checking out those rates before committing to something else. Some other examples is there's a like no fee BMO cashback MasterCard that you can get. It's actually like a credit card that is like UW branded, so it's like gold looking. And they have decent rates on it too for cashback. I haven't personally gotten one yet, but I am strongly considering it. Like Laura was talking about, you still have access to Waterloo Works. So there's external, like there's job postings that will get posted on Waterloo Works as like a job board that other people don't have access to. And you can get access to electronic library sources, and you can also have the ability to purchase a membership to use the athletics facilities if you want to, if you're staying local and you want to still use the rock climbing center or the gym at CIF, like whatever the case is, you have to purchase it and there's a specific rate for it. But the general public that's not involved with UW can't just buy a membership, so it is a bit more exclusive. But you can as an alumni. So today we talked about a lot of really great resources, including Laura came to talk to us on the Center for Career Development. I had mentioned the Writing Communication Center, a very great resource. We also have the Student Success Office on campus. Of course, us, Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs, great resources along those lines. I wanted to touch on a few resources that are relevant to you, potentially, that I did not directly address in the other slides that we're going to send out. And that is accessibility services. So I always like to remind students that accommodation plans can be made for all graduate milestones, and that includes defenses and comprehensive exams, coursework. So they're not just there to arrange accommodations for a course. If you find yourself, you're gearing up to do a comprehensive exam, or you're gearing up to do your PhD defense, whatever the case is, and you find yourself, you're in a situation where you may need and qualify for an accommodation, reach out early and start that conversation with them to see what documentation may be required, and they can work with you on that. Counseling services, they are no charge while you are here as a student still. Private and confidential counseling sessions available in person and virtual if you are located in Ontario to help you feel your best. This is especially important as we get further into our programs. You may be feeling like an increase of stress and it can be challenging. Maybe if you're in a situation where you are having issues with your supervisor and so you want someone to talk to about navigating their different relationships and things like that. And I also want to mention I highly recommend using this service while it's free to you. As you may know, like once we get out into outside of UW and the general mental health resources and counseling can get a little bit pricey. So if you find yourself in a situation where you may want to check out this service, I highly, highly recommend it. Check it out now while you have access to it for free. And of course, especially for those specifically, mostly for the PhD students in the room, if you're looking to potentially be teaching over this, maybe your last year in your program, or maybe you're looking to teach after you finish, the Center for Teaching Excellence is a great resource to get you trained up to do that at the university level. They have certificates and things like that to check out. So that brings us to the end of this GRADnavigate session. Feel free to pop some Q&A or questions into the chat or the Q&A function, and we'll address that right now. But while you're typing, I will just quickly talk about some of the upcoming sessions that we have going on in the fall, which are all live on our website. You can scan the QR code or go to the URL that is posted on the screen. In October, we are running a supervisory relationships and self-advocacy workshop. And that will be actually located at CLV. It will be in person, and we have a pizza dinner provided. Later on in October, we have our Designing Your Degree session, which is helping you kind of plan out milestones and different things in your life that will coincide with your degree. Especially useful if you're closer to the starting stages of your degree. This is open. All of these are really open to master's or PhD, but that one in particular is really useful for both. In November, especially the PhDs in the room who are thinking of potentially becoming a postdoc next, we have a session on how to postdoc. And this one is going to be online. It's going to have our current and sometimes previous postdocs that we directly work with through GSPA. They're going to come provide some advice, answer some questions for you, connect with you, and you can learn about what exactly a postdoc or a postdoctoral scholar is, and see if maybe that's something you want to explore as an option. Even if you're a master's student, if you want to learn what a postdoc is and see if it's an option you want to pursue later in your academic career, feel free to join us as well. And for those of you who may be parents or caregivers and navigating grad school, we have a session for you coming up on December 10th, if that's of interest. So again, I hope I see some of you out at some of those events. So we've reached the end, so I will go over to the Q&A function and start answering some questions. Yes, so the question for Laura about when you lose access to Center for Career Development, like advising sessions and the career appointments, I do have the answer for you actually. So you are eligible up until convocation. So for example, if you degree complete in like March 1st, 2027, technically you don't convocate until like June 21st, 2027. So there could be, depending on when you finish your degree requirements, months of time before finishing your degree and walking across that convocation stage that you will still have access to the Center for Career Development. So basically, after your designated convocation date, that is when you're going to be losing access. Okay, are there any more questions popping up for people? Again, feel free to put those in the chat or in the Q&A function. I'm not seeing any more pop up, and that's totally okay. If something else comes up and you have a question, you can always reach out to us at gradexperience@uwaterloo.ca. I will put that actually right in the chat right now. And again, the session was recorded, so in a few days, most likely on Monday, once it's uploaded and all that, I'm going to be sending out an email. I'll send out the slides. I'll send out the link to the recording, and you can review and look back on anything you may have want a refresher on, or if you want to share it with a friend who may be in a similar predicament that might value from information such as this on the final year. So thank you again for coming, and I hope to see you at our future GRADnavigate events.